Leeds United could find themselves in a little bit of a pickle, and it's a pickle that we didn't really know was coming until a few hours ago when The Athletic reported that Karl Darlow was set to leave Leeds United on a free transfer, with Manchester United having a sniff around. In addition to that, we've had a little bit more news about interest in Lucas Perry potentially moving on and going to Italy, so in this video I'm going to discuss what the situation is with Leeds United's keepers, the potential targets we're looking at, the worst case scenario that we're probably not heading towards, but it's worth a discussion, and ultimately what this means for the window as a whole. But before I do so, I'd massively appreciate if you just popped a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, 2 really easy clicks if you've not done them yet, and brilliant, thank you very much. Anyway, diving into it, the first little bit is the Karl Darlow story. Now, I don't want to give Karl Darlow a whole lot of respect right now, for obvious reasons, because Karl Darlow has moved to Manchester United. Anyone with 3 brain cells to knock together knows that going directly from Leeds to Manchester United isn't the most popular of moves on this side of the Pennines, and on that side of the Pennines, well, obviously they've got a new backup goalkeeper. I hope you enjoy sitting on the bench behind a Belgian child, but it's sort of annoying for us because we aren't that deep when it comes to keepers at the minute. Ilham Meslier has now gone to Arsenal. Alex Cairns is still here, but no one realistically expects Cairns to be a high-ranking goalkeeper next season. He's more there for the sort of coaching, behind-the-scenesy side. He's the equivalent of a Jordan Henderson without launching himself over an advertising hoarding and breaking his arm. And Lucas Perry, we will get to him in a few minutes' time, but Karl Darlow was very likely going to be our number 1 choice going into this season, and now that's impossible because he has left for a slightly higher paycheck and potentially 2 games of a Champions League group stage. Up to him, but I'm not his biggest fan anymore. Now, this would be fine because we are sort of sniffing around other goalkeepers that I'll get to in a few minutes, in the event that Lucas Perry were to be staying. However, there's been a little bit of news out of Italy that there is a hell of a lot of interest in signing Lucas Perry. We've heard about a lot of stuff coming from Torino, and there's a couple of other Serie A clubs that I've heard are sort of floating around. I asked someone that I work with that is an Italian football expert, and he says, yeah, there's a few clubs that are keeping a little bit of an eye out, which makes it a little bit of a spooky situation for Leeds, because at the moment, losing Karl Darlow means that, well, Mellier's also gone. We have 2 goalkeepers at the club, being Perry and Alex Cairns. In the event that Lucas Perry's to go, which I'll be honest, it would take a fairly significant bid. I think it'd be in the realm of £15 million plus would be PSR profit. I'm not entirely sure how big his contract is. But in the event that he were to move on, we'd need to sign not only 1 but 2 goalkeepers, because no one is looking at Alex Cairns as the realistic second choice. This is where things get a little bit complicated, because you end up heading in the direction of the worst case scenario. That being, well, now we need to sign 2 goalkeepers, which means we need to shell out a decent sum of cash on 2 different players. That, or we trust in Rory Mahady, who hasn't played a whole lot of football and isn't really realistically ready to be a second choice Premier League goalkeeper. I've got a hair in my mouth. We've seen what it means when you've got a slightly too young goalkeeper that you put in the Premier League deep end, and sure, Ilham Meslier was good for a season, then the crowds came back and his youth and inexperience in front of crowds kicked in and caused a hell of a lot of problems for him. This is where you get into the idea that we'd need to shell out a lot of cash on 2 separate goalkeepers, on wages and on fees, and ultimately that would mean effectively not having quite as much to spend in other positions where we might need that set of funding. In terms of players that we are looking at the moment, everyone's aware that we are potentially sniffing around Zion Suzuki, currently playing at Parma, Japan's... Why did I say that so weird? Sorry, Brian. Japan's first choice goalkeeper at the World Cup, and he played very, very well, to be completely honest with you. And there's a little bit of discussion around whether or not he is going to be worth the amount of money that Parma will demand, and recently we've had word come out that he's not necessarily going to be super tempted by Leeds United. There is a chance that he would instead go to a club that is getting European football, with Juventus wanting a first-team goalkeeper. They are potentially looking at Emi Martinez, who is, as we know, one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And in the event that he leaves Aston Villa would potentially also look at Suzuki, because, well, Suzuki is a very talented goalkeeper who would be going for an affordable amount of money that they would be able to pay because they will have just sold the best goalkeeper in the world right now. I say that, it's maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. which potentially rules out one target. Then we get onto the next target, which is one that is wanted by a hell of a lot of people, but potentially one of the most difficult targets to go for right now in world football, and that would be James Trafford. Man City aren't in the business of letting their young talents go for cheap fees, because, well, why would they be? Especially when they're already in the England squad, despite not playing that much football. He's a ridiculously good player. Incredible shot stopper, decent enough with his feet. Yeah, he struggled a little bit for Man City earlier in the season, but at the end of the day, when you're being replaced by Gianluigi Donnarumma, you can't really do too much about that. It's a little bit of a problem. However, he would cost probably more than Suzuki, considering the amount that Man City paid for him, and Man City would want a buyback, so you don't really have that guarantee that you'd have him for a very, very long time, and he'd want very, very high wages, and there's a chance that they'd only let him go on loan, and in the event that they let him go out on loan, well, you can't really build around him, because then you've got the exact same issue in a year's time. Not really the most fun of situations to be in. A lot of people have talked about Zetterstrom as well, who was a Derby goalkeeper, Sweden starting goalkeeper at the World Cup, and he looks fairly good, yeah, but the links there were momentary, they weren't super significant, and it felt quite a lot like agent talk. So this is where the question comes in. One, do we allow Lucas Perry to leave? In the event that we get a profit from his sale, I think there's a pretty damn good chance that we do. I don't know how likely he is to work his way back into Daniel Farke's plans. He wasn't Daniel Farke's first choice, he wasn't the board's first choice. He was effectively a compromise pick that was made by the fact that Lyon were falling apart. If he goes, then it becomes two goalkeepers rather than one, but at the very least we need to sign a number one goalkeeper. For the past 2 seasons, we've had a goalkeeper that is your clear number one and a goalkeeper that is, on paper, your number two, but in theory you've got two people that are your number 1.5, that no one is sort of standing out above the other one, which is not a good position to be in for goalkeepers. You want a little bit more certainty. Some might argue that the idea that you've got two players fighting against each other and wanting to sort of prove themselves and earn their place in the side is a positive, but you can do that whilst having a clear goalkeeper that is top of the line. A goalkeeper can make a difference over the length of the season. They can save you a hell of a lot of points and make the difference between relegation and mid-table. We saw that a little bit with Karl Darlow, and imagine that a better goalkeeper than him still, because he still made mistakes. Ultimately, this is one of the most important positions on a football pitch, and I'm probably biased because it's the position that I play in from time to time, but if we do lose Perry, we need to invest more than we want to, and even if we don't lose Perry, we need to invest a hell of a lot of money into securing that position for the long term, which is going to be an interesting problem to deal with. Anyway, it's an interesting... Oh, I went 8 minutes without stumbling over my own stupid words. It's an interesting problem for the board to deal with as opposed to Leeds United fans, so let's hope that we deal with it in the best way possible. As always, all this is just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like the video, as I mentioned, subscribe if you haven't yet. You can even be a channel member, you get videos like this one early, and I'm planning on doing some more sort of member exclusive stuff, but that depends on sort of time commitments, including a baby. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. I will see you all later. Doodle.